Live streaming is on.
I think that means we're good to go.
Where is he? I don't see his icon. Do you?
He jumped off. Get him back on.
Let's see. Oh yeah, D. Okay, his.
Yeah, he's on. He's just not sharing his video or mic.
Okay, he. Yeah, he's not responding to me, so maybe he just went to the restroom or something. Who knows?
Cool.
I'm looking at Vertly. It says main stage is not live, or is that's a different step?
Yeah. So, Tom, you'll need to go into the main stage and say start the stream. It should be in the like left-hand column.
Oh, okay.
It says go live. You see that?
He says I'm the D. Oh, okay. He says he doesn't hear anything. Okay. He says he doesn't hear. That's weird.
Going live.
Sweet.
We're talking.
Oh, but at least we have Dave in spirit. Oh, but he can't hear us?
No, he can't hear.
Playback has been disabled. Hold on. The main stage is not functioning. Matt, are you on the YouTube?
Yeah, it's working.
The main stage is not, at least for me. It says video unavailable. So can you
disabled by the video owner?
Yeah, can you go in? Are you on the? Hold on a second. On the studio, I think you have to make it public. It might be defaulted to private. Let me look real quick.
Privacy's on public.
He's using Chrome and can't hear.
It says public. Is anyone else seeing the main stage right now? Not working?
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm not.
You're muted.
I see video unavailable.
Right. I don't know.
Oh, he said he heard live streaming is on voice. Wait, hold on. Then that's it.
Yeah, the I see the YouTube video, but it's just not overtly.
Okay, Tom, I'm putting on Keybase for you.
I see the YouTube video, but it's just not overtly.
Okay, Tom, I'm putting on Keybase for you. I see the YouTube video, but it's just not overtly. Okay, I'm putting on Keybase. We're getting feedback from YouTube. Can you mute? You've got the live stream going.
Oh. Sorry.
Sounds like an alien.
I think I muted her.
Yeah, there you go. So the main stage is still video unavailable. Watch this video on YouTube.
Yeah, I updated the live stream URL there.
Yeah, okay. So on YouTube it's fine, but it's broken on Vertly. And you've updated it on the main stage in the cockpit, Tom?
Yeah.
That is so weird.
How about I end the YouTube stream and we try and restart the Vertly stream because that's where most of the people are.
Mm-mm. So there is no Vertly stream. It is the YouTube stream. I'd say if we can invite people to join us on the YouTube instead of Vertly, and then we'll move over to Vertly afterwards for the breakout rooms.
Yeah, let me put that in the chat then.
Cool. Yeah. So it says watch this video on YouTube. Join us on YouTube. Yep. That's the one.
Cool. Can join us here.
Dave's trying icon. Oh, now his camera icon's on, but it's not showing him.
Well, I think we're good in live. And Matt, you can be watching the YouTube is going to be a lot more live now in the chat group there, presumably, as people are moving over. Cool. So yeah,
Oh.
Tom, if you want to keep funneling people from Vertly to click on watch this video on YouTube from the main stage, that'd be good. And then I think we can
All right.
probably get started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get started. So, welcome everyone to the Dumb Money Crypto Talks, a special event that Crypto Dallas, Cryptorado, and the Open Economy Initiative have put together for the Dumb Money Live community. I'm Leon Gabon, former employee at Ticker Tags, a startup founded by Chris and Jordan of Dumb Money. I'm the founder of Crypto Dallas and a host of the Dallas Bitcoin Meetup. With me today are my friends Dan Shields, founder of Cryptorado, and Shield Brimmer from the Open Economy Initiative. I will be covering the history of money and the investment thesis for Bitcoin and crypto. In my talk, Dan will be covering more about blockchain, and she'll be covering current crypto regulations. And with that, let me allow Dan to introduce himself.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me, Leon. This is a lot of fun. So yeah, as you said, I'm one of the founders of Cryptorado, which is Colorado's blockchain and crypto community here. And so I do a lot of events and networking, and what I'm really passionate about is distributed systems in general. So blockchain, which I'll talk about here, is really the underpinning of how cryptocurrencies work. And it's also kind of been a boom for so many distributed systems and all these cool new technologies that are coming about because of this stuff. So that's what I'm passionate about, and I'm really on the technical side is what I'm keen on. And but I'm also really excited to be working with Chill, who I'll pass it over to, with the Open Economy Initiative, specifically on getting adoption of cryptocurrencies in general. Really, that's something I'm passionate about as well. So Chill, you want to say hi? Oh, you're muted.
Okay,
There you go.
you know?
Yeah.
Great.
Good.
So I'm Chill. I'm the relentlessly cheerful co-founder of the Open Economy Initiative. I'm mostly involved with the regulatory environment here in Colorado. And yeah, basically I'm going to be sharing with you the current regulatory framework, both in the United States and overseas.
Thanks, Jill. And with that, let me get started. So let me share my screen. So the history of money and era of crypto.
We'll want to look at you too, though, Leon, if you want to turn your video.
Thanks for reminding me. There we go.
Perfect.
Cool. So real quick, this was for Vertly, but since we're just using YouTube, well, when we come back to Vertly after all this is done, taking their questions, please join us in one of the rooms that will be breakout rooms for different topics, and you can post questions in chat, and we can answer everyone's question then. Oh, so we also have a sweet deal for you guys tonight. It's the Crypto Talks raffle. So there's this form that will be shared on YouTube and in Vertly. So please sign up on that form. Please give us some kind of username and an email so we can contact you if you win. But we're giving away $100 in Bitcoin from all of us, $50 worth of Monero from Cryptorado. And we're also giving away a goodie bag, including a KeepKey hardware wallet to keep your crypto secure, a free Bitcoin course, and some homemade wine, chocolate, and more from the OP. And here's a little screenshot of what that care package looks like. And there's some more important links if you would like to check them out on dop.com/dumbmoney. And so with that, so first, what is money? So here is a photo of some rice stones from the island of Yap. And this monetary system worked on oral history of ownership. As long as the transaction is recorded in the oral history, it is now owned by the person whom it was transferred to, with no physical movement of the stone even required. So say a chieftain would call a public tribe meeting and conduct a verbal transaction. And throughout early human history, money arose in all these different forms, but they all served the same purpose, which was to maintain a ledger of debt. Who owes whom to what, and as a store of value, storing up debts to be called upon at later dates. And all these early forms of money had the same characteristics and served the same purposes throughout history. So here are the characteristics of money. Money serves as a medium of exchange, a store of value. Scarcity being the most important aspect of store of value. It also has to be recognizable, divisible, transportable, and fungible, meaning this piece of gold is the same as this piece of gold. I don't care which one you give me, or this Bitcoin is the same as this Bitcoin, etc., etc. Also, the strongest and most dominant form of money ends up being the main unit of account. So these are early forms of money. Different tribes picked out different things from shells and different stones. But however, as civilization grew, one form of tribal money wouldn't work well with another. So this was a problem that contributed to the rise of gold, which is found all over the world, and for 6,000 years served as the most scarce, most durable, easy divisible, recognizable form of money. And gold is one of the first examples of a hard, sound form of money. And here's a quick evolution of money from early money to hard sound money. Then came the invention of paper notes, and that took about 400 years. And then the unpegging of gold, modern monetary theory introduced, and now we're kind of in the era of cryptocurrencies. And by the way, a little quick tidbit. Early anthropologists will tell you that if you can describe a tribe's early natural environment to them, they can tell you what will arise as money because it has all the characteristics of money. And this is why gold eventually won out, because it was the hardest, it wasn't easily inflatable, and had the highest scarcity. So let's talk about Bitcoin a little bit. So the prime aspects of Bitcoin, it has a hard and sound monetary policy. So with gold, there's gold you can mine every single year. But with Bitcoin, there's a set limit of 21 million that will never change. And according to the code, the last Bitcoin will be mined sometime in 140 years from now. It's uncensorable because there's no bank in between. There's no need for a middleman. And Dan will go into that in how the blockchain works. It's permissionless and global. Anyone with an internet connection can get access to it. And it's now Bitcoin satellites. It's got high security. And again, that's another topic that Dan will cover in his talk. And it represents the decentralization of money, like the internet represented the decentralization of information. And there is this idea that's starting to form, which is the separation of state and money, which it seems like cryptocurrency are well meant for that. And quickly, Bitcoin versus gold is scarcer, only 21 million, cryptographically recognizable, divisible up to 100 million, so 8 decimal points in one Bitcoin. It's transportable like an email, durable, you can't destroy a Bitcoin. You can lose access to a Bitcoin, however, and it's digitally fungible. So both Bitcoin and gold are sound money because of their retrospective characteristics and properties. But sound money suffers from two problems. And one is inflation and counterfeiting. And both issues which are completely absent from Bitcoin. You can't counterfeit the Bitcoin, and you can't go more than 21 million Bitcoins. Oh, and an interesting story here. So North Korea was able to create a fake $100 US bill. However, they have to mine Bitcoin, which actually adds to the security of Bitcoin and generates real Bitcoin, but they can't counterfeit Bitcoin. So where are we now? So there have been 4 industrial revolutions in our history. So first brought us steam and railroads, electrification and mass production, computers, mainframe, and the internet. And we're now in this kind of 4th industrial revolution, which is this convergence and acceleration of multiple technologies from nanotech to AI, digital assets, or money 2.0, if you can see that in this slide. And all technology builds upon previous innovations. So we had the PC era, which gave birth to the internet era. And now we're seeing a new internet of money take place in the past 10 years, and it's only growing. And innovation, by the way, is hard to spot when it's you're on the ground level and it's just forming. And this is a quote from Paul Krugman, an economist, that by 2005, the internet that it will become clear that the internet's impact to the economy will be no greater than that of the fax machine. So he was clearly wrong. So the investment thesis, info arb for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So my name is Leon Gabon. I'm not a registered investment, legal, or tax advisor. All investment financial opinions expressed by me are for personal research and experience and only intended for educational purposes. So this is I'm paraphrasing a lot from a talk that Tom Lee from Fundstrat did from Global Advisors. And he did a talk on generational investing. So to paraphrase some quotes from that talk, cryptocurrencies have emerged as a new asset class. 92% of millennials don't trust banks. Blockchain is creating digital scarcity and native digital trust. That trust doesn't exist in existing systems today. And Dan will cover about why you don't need to trust anyone with a blockchain. Another quote, clearly social media was a millennial story, as is blockchain. This is not the internet bubble. This is a lot more like an emerging markets becoming an asset class. So from his talk, it mainly focused around generational investing, which is something that his fund uses for every asset. And so right now, millennials represent the largest population cohort ever in history. So here in this graph, you can see we have about 95 million millennials in the United States. The youngest millennial is 20, oldest is 39. The cohort is 29 and a half. And India and China both have 400 million millennials each. And a quote from Tom Lee again, to understand millennials, you have to look through the world through 20-year-old eyes. Think back to when you were 20 and your world then. So this is another chart. Millennials are set to inherit 68 trillion over the next 20 years. And is it my thesis that and Tom's that a lot of that is going to transition into cryptocurrencies. So each generation sees innovation, mostly digital today, and circled in blue are the disruptive and misunderstood innovations by the prior generation. So baby boomers in their 20s, they were in the 70s and 80s. They saw personal computing, Apple's, Microsoft, and graphic user interfaces, which were very innovative at the time, but misunderstood by the silent generation and the greatest generation. And my generation, Generation X, we got email, text messaging, Google, cellular technologies, and Amazon. And right now, millennials in their 20s, it's definitely a lot of social media. And right now, it's looking like blockchain and electric cars are being misunderstood by prior generations. And a very interesting part during his talk, equity markets tend to peak with each generation's peak incoming earning years. So that's late 30s to early 50s, late 50s. So, and here is just a graph showing the peak. So when the greatest generation reached their peak income earning years, we had a market top in equities and a decline. Silent generation next. Then a big boom with the boomers in the 90s with consumer stocks. And my generation wasn't as big a population, so we weren't able to move the needle as drastically. However, millennials represent the largest generation of all. Oh, and on the y-axis on the left is the Dow Jones Index. This is a slide from his talk. So, greatest generation peak. Then, obviously, that was the Great Depression, a 9% decline. the silent generation peak in the 1970s. Boomers peaked in 1999. Market top for a little bit, decline, and then recovery. Generation X. So this is an old slide. He predicted a 20% decline. We had a 35% decline. And then millennials are set to peak in 2038. And this, I put forth turning here because a lot of generational and kind of like end of the long-term debt cycle things are happening right now. So we're seeing a lot of turbulence and other things affecting macroeconomics. This is a slide from the Dallas Fire Meetup, which I also run. It's just a 201-year long-term U.S. stock market history. So as they say, stonks always go up. This little dip here in between 1920 and 1930s, the Great Depression, but it continues to go up as prosperity goes up in the world. So now let's talk about a little bit about adoption waves in Bitcoin. So here's the logarithmic graph of Bitcoin for the last 10 years since its inception in 2009, and it didn't have a trading price until 2010. And it is the best performing asset of the last decade. So to put things in perspective, if you were to invest $100 in 2010, it would be 23 million today. So the first era was Satoshi Nakamoto, an anonymous developer, and the cypherpunks came around and they created this. It was mostly just a tool that cryptographers loved, and they passed it around each other and hey, check it out. We've created a form of digital money, and we've created digital scarcity, basically. So around that time, a lot of anarcho-ANCAPs kind of picked it up as well. So 2011 and 2013, 14 represented the dark web led by the Silk Road. So with all innovation and technologies, there's usually like criminals who want to get ahead of the curve, get ahead of law enforcement. So it was mostly used to buy and sell marijuana online, and you could basically buy anything on there. So that was defining period for Bitcoin during those years. However, in 2014 to 2017, with the rise of Ethereum as well, we started seeing Silicon Valley VC involvement and the ICO boom, or initial coin offering. So before, normally when a company IPOs, the public can't really enter that. But with the ICO, it actually kind of decentralized and opened that to anyone being able to invest in a startup. However, there's the SEC is coming down on some of those ICOs. Now, in 2018 and onward, we're starting to see early institutional money entering into space. And by sometime later, all global financial institutions will eventually get involved in this asset class. It's nascent, only 10 years, and asset classes only come around every few hundred years or every couple of centuries. And the question is, nation state adoption and unit of account status, that is to be seen. And now we're talking about the phases and narratives of Bitcoin. So first, it was just a proof of concept after the Bitcoin white paper. Then it became payments after it hit 1 Bitcoin equaled $1 US. Then the narrative became digital gold after the first halving event, where the inflation rate of Bitcoin gets cut in half, and 1 Bitcoin equals 1 ounce of gold. Now 1 Bitcoin equals 5 ounces of gold, and actually probably a little bit more. And now the narrative is it's a financial asset. So after the second halving, Bitcoin was processing $1 billion in transactions per day. Legal clarity in Japan and Australia. It's legal tender in Japan. Futures markets launched by the CME and BAC, which is a company launched by ICE, which owns the New York Stock Exchange. We see Fidelity digital assets you can buy in a Robinhood. So we're starting to see early info dissemination happen right now with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So here in the middle, we have Representative Davidson from Ohio. And this was during the Facebook Libra hearings. And I watched all 6 hours of that. And what was surprising was they were very negative on Facebook, but they were very positive on Bitcoin. Like multiple reps were talking about there is Bitcoin and there is shitcoin. And talking about how Bitcoin was decentralized and Facebook's Libra was centralized, that was surprising to even me. PayPal recently, PayPal and Venmo are starting to roll out with crypto buying services, probably to compete with Square. Grade's Bitcoin holdings surpassed 3 billion, adding 67% this year. And also their Ethereum trust is now growing like super fast. Over here on the right, JP Morgan just signed with Coinbase and Gemini. And this is after a lot of negative press by their CEO. And Coinbase is now valued at $8 billion after closing a new $300 million round. Oh, a little quote from Kathy Woods from ARK Invest: 20% of funds launched in 2018 were crypto funds. Oh, and Paula Tudor Jones, basically, he was one of the first major institutional investors to invest in Bitcoin. Apparently, 2% of his assets. So Bitcoin's early info dissemination is still going on. It was recently, like last couple of days, where Davey Day Trader, he put out a video on Twitter, like he wanted to buy Bitcoin but not understanding it, and reached out to the Winklevoss twins, like, hey, show me how to buy this Bitcoin. And then today he tweeted he wanted to buy all Bitcoins, and this is contrasted with Warren Buffett's quote, "I don't own any Bitcoin and I never will." And yeah, so the world has an unlimited supply of fiat, and there's only a limited supply of Bitcoin. And there's a quick snapshot of all the money in the world. So card money supply, the M0, M1, M2, etc. We have real estate at around 230 trillion, global bonds at 86 trillion. Art represents a $17 trillion market cap. Gold's at 9 trillion. And here, tiny old crypto is only at 56 billion, Bitcoin at 200 billion, and Ethereum just added 10 billion recently, actually, and is at 44 billion. So the US money supply is 5 trillion. US stock market, 22 trillion, is now probably 30 trillion. Global stocks, 30 trillion. Global derivatives, 600 trillion to a quadrillion. If Bitcoin equates to market cap of gold, that's 487K per coin. If it's equal to the market cap of gold, art, that'll be 921K per coin. And just a last stats here, if 1% of what millennials inherit in 2030 enter Bitcoin, that would present a 375% increase today. And in my opinion, true information symmetry has not been reached on a crypto asset class, because you still have people out there thinking it's used only to buy drugs. And they have and Ray Dalio hasn't taken a position in it, and 50% of institutions have not invested in Bitcoin yet. Oh, and this is the last chart here. This is the recent crypto rally. So we had this dip over here was the COVID and liquidity crisis. And Bitcoin was tied with the SPY around that time, but now it's acting more like gold, and actually Ethereum actually outperformed Bitcoin recently. And that concludes my talk on the history of money and era of cryptocurrencies. So I'm opening up for some questions from the Dumb Money crew before I pass it on.
Whew, that was good, man. I learned a few new things there, man. Mainly, God, art is $17 trillion. That seems insane. I would never have thought that.
Yeah, that shocked me too.
So, by the way, Dave was on here. He's having, for the first time ever, Dave is having so many technical difficulties. He cannot figure out it's not working for him. So, apologize for people that were expecting to see Dave.
I can actually see you guys now. I don't know if I'm even in the room, but I do see you now.
Yeah, he's here.
I see myself. I hear myself, but that's it.
Big beating circle there. All right. All right, and Leon, let me just say this. First of all, you know how I feel. You know that I'm like, I've been watching this for years and thinking about it, and I just can't get over. I can't get over the hump. But I will say this: I think if we go far enough out, it seems pretty obvious that at some point in time, it's just a matter of when, not if. Right? I mean, I get it. The digital currency, you know, I just think that there's so many things that need to happen between now and then to make this a dominant global currency. I can't even wrap my head around it in terms of what has to happen at the government level, what has to happen in terms of, you know, the biggest barriers for me are, you know, ease of use, which is still incredibly terrible. Like, it's horrifically bad. So bad that other than the people that are already on it, I don't think there's a single new person in the world that would want to deal with it. No one has done a good job yet there. I think that has to be resolved. And I don't know when that's going to happen. And my issue is it's a massive change of behavior. We talk about this all the time in the startup world, right? It's very simply, crypto is a change of behavior. That's it. It's a change of behavior, right? And there are a number of reasons to want crypto to work, right? We don't have to go into all those, like the government manipulation of money, right? There's just so much that's wrong with the currency the way it is right now and the way it's been. I mean, there's so many issues with it, right? And I think the concept of cryptocurrency, it fixes a lot of those issues. Technically, it could. But at the same time, to get people to change behavior is like the hardest thing in the world. And I'm just not sure, other than some people that are ethically motivated to push crypto because it's the right thing to do long term, right? For humanity, you could even say it's the right thing to do. I'm not sure if that is enough, because there's not enough problems with conventional money for the average 22-year-old girl who totally embraces TikTok and totally embraces Snapchat and totally embraces, you know, getting in an Uber and not buying a car ever again for the rest of her life because there's a different way to commute from point A to point B. But for that person, I think her credit card and Cash App, right, I think works well enough for her. And she probably doesn't see, and I don't mean to bias just a female, I'm just using that as a random example, but it could be a male as well. Him or her do not see the damage that 1% transaction fee or 1.5% transaction fee is doing to humanity, right? And they're not seeing the damage that being able to have total control over the money supply as a government really does to lower income people. I mean, listen, right now, I'll be the first to say it. The market is not rigged. The economy and the money supply is rigged to benefit me. Okay, I am benefiting more. I have a lot of money. I can leverage my money. And so no matter what happens the next 20 years, I can figure out a way to win. And the game is totally rigged for people like me, right? And like, we could have massive inflation. Won't impact me. I'm going to be just fine, right? But right now, there are so many people that aren't able to take advantage of the financial engineering, of the increase in money supply, of the inflation of certain assets. Even if we don't see inflation overall, there have been certain assets that have been inflated. Like, there's so many people that just can't tap into that they're disadvantaged. So I see why this is important to so many people that are behind cryptocurrency. I just don't know if I see the need for it in the next 20 to 30 years to where I believe in the hyper growth that a lot of the crypto people, such as yourself, are hoping will happen. Now, that doesn't mean, and I'll let Jordan speak because I know you have thoughts on this, and Dave, that doesn't mean that there aren't massive opportunities to social arb the crypto markets. What I do love about crypto is that, like anything else, it's a very liquid market, right? It's a liquid market that trades 24 hours a day, and it trades a lot of times based on information, the same way a stock does, the same way any other market does. And so, you know, I don't know much about the type of information that moves cryptocurrency. I don't know much about that. But what I do know is that if you can figure that out, there's no reason why you couldn't trade crypto the same way you would trade an asset, right? In any other asset class. So I think there is opportunity here for people that social arb invest, like myself, who want to do that with crypto. It's just maybe not my thing, at least not today. But I think there's opportunity there.
Yeah, those, first of all, great questions. And I had all those same concerns when I was first getting into Bitcoin in 2013. So let me address a few of that. So yeah, right now at this moment, Bitcoin is a terrible medium of exchange. And actually most of them are terrible medium of exchanges. There is a small core of the Bitcoin community that see Bitcoin being used day to day for purchases in the future. And that's using the Lightning Network and multiple different networks that use Bitcoin as a settlement, rather. And however, I actually am not that. I don't think that's going to happen. What I think is going to happen, and we're always seeing this with China. So China is working on their digital currency, and it is actually going to be a cryptocurrency. And so eventually, the U.S. is going to have their own digital dollar, and it makes sense for them. They'll save money. It's easier to track in some ways. So what I see Bitcoin transitioning more into is basically this digital gold, and it's a hedge against USD inflation. So as services improve, and we're seeing that with Cash App, like Jack Dorsey's committing to working on Bitcoin Lightning Network, we're going to see more people use Bitcoin as an investing tool. We're going to see the USD digital coin, and what's going to prompt this flight into Bitcoin, and we're starting to see that now, it's just this monetary stimulus, right? The quantitative easing that's just gone insane lately. And most people don't realize that MMT is only 50 years old, and this constant printing of money, right now, like we're the dominant currency in the world, so we don't really have to worry about that, but we're at the last legs of that. So I see value flowing into Bitcoin because of that, and so crypto will be used more so for that, and then eventually I foresee global marketplaces where people will be able to purchase things using different coins in different marketplaces. But yeah, that was my 2 cents on it.
I get it. Jordan, what do you think, man? You're not. You've never bought into the crypto stuff, but I mean, we got to have an open mind, right, Jordan? I mean, like what are your thoughts?
I mean, my thought, it's not about being bought in or not being bought in. I think, I think there's a potential use. Like you said, it's not a very good medium for exchange yet, but that's what I view a currency as achieving. And so for me, I don't see the utility. I see that, I see that people view it as an asset class, that they view it as like a gold alternative, maybe, or some sort of, inflation hedge, because it's Bitcoin is still growing right now, but there's a fixed rate and a fixed amount of growth that Bitcoin can have. So maybe people view it as a store of value. But for me, I don't really see it as an investment, just because I view investments as, I put money in that helps a business grow, right? And I don't see that for Bitcoin, right? So like, for me, like, it's not really a currency because you can't exchange it well. It's not really an investment because your dollars don't go to do, to add utility, right? And so maybe it's good as a store of value for right now, an alternative to gold. Gold's kind of old school, but it's also, historically, it's been a store of value. So look, I'm not really for or against Bitcoin. I just think that people need to understand what it is and what its limitations are right now.
Yeah. Do you think gold? It certainly seems to me like at some point it makes a lot more sense than gold as this kind of store of value, right?
Like here's my one gripe with Bitcoin and my one pro gold. So the good thing about gold is that it has intrinsic value, and that's the one downside for Bitcoin is there's actually zero intrinsic value. right? And so, that's maybe a slight hurdle for the store of wealth argument. If I would have an easier time adopting Bitcoin if it were very easy to transact in, because that's the one thing that I think would be really nice, right? Because Visa, MasterCard, online payments, you're paying 1.25%, 1.5%. With Bitcoin, that's not really there. It is still expensive to do online transactions, but at this point, really, the purchaser's not really paying those fees. But there is a lot of energy going into processing transactions. More so, I think like maybe 10 to 15% more, or 10 to 15 times what it takes to actually process like a credit card transaction. So that's kind of an issue. I just see a lot of issues. I think we're early on in it. I think there's a long way to go, and hopefully some of these problems can get knocked out, because I think there is a place for it in the world.
Yeah, so I agree. We have a long way to go. My two comments on that would be, so a lot of people are trying to see it through these traditional lenses, like, is it a currency? Is it a company? So I would postulate that it's more of this new emerging asset class, which with new attributes. It's money. It's also technology. It's also programmable money, like more so with Ethereum and what's going on in the Ethereum space at the moment. So yeah, it's something new, right? So that's another kind of layer to kind of add to that. With the intrinsic value of gold, so the value of gold used in industrials is like less than 10% of the value in gold. It's the real value in gold is actually it's sound money and its store value properties. And with Bitcoin, people are spending billions of dollars in electricity to mine it. So you could make that similar argument there. But yeah, if intrinsic value is hard to define, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would agree with that, Leon, because I think gold has some value, but I think silver probably works a lot better in terms of intrinsic value as a percentage of actual value, right?
Intrinsic value, because it tarnishes, and that's one attribute about gold that you don't have to worry about, is it has zero. It's atomically stable, so it doesn't tarnish.
Yeah, well, neither is crypto, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Right? It's such a great
you can't melt out advantage
at all, right?
Hey, when we go to Mars, by the way,
as long as people keep hosting the ledgers on their computers, then yeah, I mean, you're fine.
I mean, and I'm thinking like as like a portable value, like when we're flying around the universe in 300-400 years, 500 years, like. Gold is way too heavy to bring around with you, right?
Well,
like crypto's way lighter.
That's the reason that we've got fiat currency right now, is because around the 20s and 30s, whenever there was a trade imbalance, they used to ship gold around to account for the trade imbalance between countries.
Well, you see, so Jordan, like that's the thing. Like we'll get obviously the fiat currency will transfer to a new type of fiat currency. Like when we have the equivalent, Leon, you're saying, of the digital dollar. Digital dollar is still fiat currency, right? It's literally just a digital form of a fiat currency for the U.S. government. And I think with any type of cryptocurrency, a Bitcoin that's not limited by governments, it's truly a global scaling currency that I think, unfortunately, we're going in the reverse direction right now, right? As countries are kind of, and maybe that's a temporary thing, but we have to go well beyond that, right? We have to have some sort of global stability, I think, in terms of a mutual agreement between people from around the world to have a truly, well-performing global currency like Bitcoin that is lasting and trustable, right? That you can really trust through a war, right? Because here's the deal: like we can't all pretend that there's no chance, there isn't a chance of a massive global war at some point in the future. And if you get into that situation, your government, whatever your government is, they're just going to say, hey, this is the only thing that matters, right? Is our currency, maybe. So you have to get that buy-in, right? You really have to get government buy-in at a global level, which doesn't take all the world's governments, but it takes a handful of the biggies, right? So like United States, like, and a few others have to buy into this. And once a few of them do, and I don't know that that's going to happen anytime in the near future. And that's my big issue with crypto right now.
Well, here's the other thing, right? So crypto solves a bunch of problems. The one thing that it doesn't solve is the credit problem. And so you still have to have lenders, and you have to have debt and credit to be able to have a functioning monetary system. And crypto doesn't really add or detract from that. I mean, you still have to have banks involved to be able to handle some of those things.
Yeah, but you could make crypto can become bankable, right? In a new, there's a time when I could see crypto becoming bankable under a conventional system. It's just, it's more isolated from each country's banking system, but it's still there. It's still an asset that they can leverage.
It's also part of their. It's inelastic, right? I mean, one of the other reasons besides shipping gold all around the world to account for trade imbalances, we went to fiat currency, is so that you can control the money supply, which is important. I know that increasing the money supply is good for some people, and it's bad for other people. So it's bad for people who own debt, and it's good for people who are in debt. But it is an important tool that governments can use, and I see that cryptocurrency is a way to kind of get around that, so you can democratize that a little bit more. But it's still important. The other issue with gold is, since there's a fixed amount, they're still mining it, right? But relatively, there's a fixed amount. Is that it's prone to boom bust cycles, right? And so the more people hoard it, the less liquid it becomes, and then you see the bust cycle come back in. And so, which
would happen with crypto too, right? I mean, because crypto is the same way, right?
We've seen it happen with crypto, right? And I think you'll continue to see a boom bust cycle happen with crypto relative to currencies, right?
But you know what, Jordan? I love the boom bust cycle. Like, I think the boom bust cycle.
Look, there's opportunity there, right? And so.
Well, no, but I think it's also healthy, right? So I think the boom bust cycle is one of those things that I miss more than anything else, because it's such a healthy part of productivity and efficiencies, and just the natural selection of companies and winners and losers, and flushing that out. And it also keeps everybody in check, right? And when you lose that cycle, when you do what we're doing now, I don't know how this is going to end, but it feels terrible. And my gut instinct my whole life when it comes to this has always been right. I don't think this is healthy. I don't think it's positive. I think we're starting to see what's happening here. We refuse to have the bust part of the cycle. And by refusing to have that, it's going to come out in other ways. It just is, and it's going to be terrible.
Political impact to a bust cycle is very, very bad, right? And so nobody wants to go through austerity measures when they could just devalue, right? And that's the other way to deal with things, is you devalue. But you're right, you don't flush out bad companies. You don't flush out bad debt when you devalue.
Yeah, and we don't even know, Jordan, we don't even know the impact of not having a boom bust cycle, because the truth is, we can look around and say, hey, life is great, the economies are good, people are doing okay, there's prosperity, and think, you know what, we're doing just fine without it, not realizing how much better we might be doing if we had an actual bust cycle and had those efficiencies and productivities just brought into world economies like we have in the past. Because think about it, 10 years from now, we might think we're doing okay, but we could be doing so much better think about the innovation that we have in technology and everything, that we could basically eliminate poverty. Who knows? We could be in a place with a boom bust cycle where, with the efficiencies that brings in 10 years, we could eliminate global poverty. We could eliminate so many things, but we won't know how good it could be, because we just think we're doing okay by drifting up the way that we are, keeping all this inefficient garbage, right? Like this inefficient garbage. We don't even know how much that's weighting us down as a world.
Well, yeah,
because it's
like you
right.
Said, we'll never know, right?
Yeah.
At a certain point, you have to make decisions and you have to make trade-offs, and we're not the ones making the decisions. It's other people making the decisions.
Not yet. Not yet. Dumb money's not making those big decisions yet. You never know.
It's that it's unelected politicians that are making the decisions. Jerome Powell isn't elected. He's a proxy.
Yeah.
So those are all great points. I believe Dan wanted to speak. You want to chime in, Dan, or are we all? Yeah.
Yeah. This is all great conversation and good points. And I got a few things that I'd love to talk about. Potentially, we could save it for breakout rooms after. That's one possibility, and I can go into my presentation, or we can dive into some more of that right now. Up to you guys.
You could throw it out. I have a hard stop at 9 my time, which is 10 Eastern. So I could just throw it out right now, and
Sure. Well, so I think earlier on we were talking about like adoption of this stuff, right? And in particular, thinking about in the first world, like in the US, it's really doesn't make a lot of sense. Like in the short term, Bitcoin is relatively slow. It's really hard to understand, and all this crypto stuff, like it's a behavioral change, I think is what we were talking about. I agree. But this is where it gets really interesting, is that in the not so lucky countries like we are in the first world here, Bitcoin and other crypto technologies are really taking off. And specifically, I think one great example of this is Paxful, and it's Paxful. This is a peer-to-peer exchange that's primarily centered in Africa. And what happens with Paxful is Bitcoin is kind of the underpinning that's actually kind of out of the way, but allows for direct buying and selling of goods like basically you can think of it as a money exchange. So people need to get money to their families. So this is international remittances and things like this from Africa in and out. But traditionally banks, you just can't do that. So you might in Africa have a bank account, but you cannot send, like, wires are apparently like basically impossible or way too expensive to be doing. So here, this Paxful exchange allows people to get things and basically exchange money into their own currency very, very fluidly without even using Bitcoin directly. It's the underpinning of how you get money from outside inside. And so it's as a way for especially developing countries to get access to better money, which almost everybody wants is the US dollar, right? They want access to this. It is the world's reserve currency, right? So actually what I think we're seeing is the adoption of stable coins, which I'll talk a little bit about, that when we're talking about volatility, boom and bust cycles, these effectively say, no, we're going to have all of these things of the principles of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, but peg the price to $1. And there's a lot of interesting ways in which we can make that happen. But here then people are getting access to all of the great properties in settlement that you see in cryptocurrency, but the price stability pegged, at least right now, almost entirely to the US dollar. A few people are thinking about other bundled assets, like I think Leon, you mentioned Libra in particular. This is a really interesting case study if you guys haven't researched this at all. This was Facebook, they're still working on it, attempts to make a cryptocurrency of their own that's pegged to a bundle of assets. So here it's not just pegged to the dollar, it's a whole swath of different things globally. And so it's a really interesting financial tool that they're interested in making. So that's one thing to check out. And in thinking about where currency is going in general, like the US dollar, I like to think that probably relatively soon we're going to digitize this thing and get rid of paper cash. I think that's a natural evolution that's coming. The Fed coin, I think I like to colloquially call it. So there really are three classes, I think, of cryptocurrencies that are going to be of interest and where we see this evolve. And that's things like Bitcoin, which is this totally open and global network that anybody can access. And then corporate money like Libra. So this is a somewhat more private network that is administrated and has some connections, but really is transnational as well. So like Facebook is a transnational company, and the consortium that Libra wants to be is transnational, right? And then government money. So people are thinking about a much more controlled and specific to your nationality that you use in that particular society's context. So like, I guess from a broad swath, I'm really interested in those three different aspects that are coming around. And I think that's pretty much all I'd want to say to that end. So some great ideas and great topics that we are bringing up, but Like, yeah, I'd be down to dig into it more in these breakout sessions after, for sure.
Awesome. Hey, Dave, if you're still here, Dave, can you why you recently invested in back in crypto again after being out of it? I thought for a while. What was your thinking? Are you here, Dave? Still?
I'm here. I don't know if you can see or hear me, but I'm here.
I hear you. I hear you.
Well, I see myself. I don't know why I'm.
I hear you're back. Now we see you. You're there. You're there.
Well, hey, this is exciting. I actually didn't get back into crypto. I just never sold out back when you sold out of crypto. So I kind of saw crypto as my kind of other asset. I heard Leon talking about gold earlier. It's my alternative to having gold. It's just something else, and it's almost more of my FOMO investment. Like, I would hate to not have any crypto that moment that it becomes like the next tripling of crypto. I don't want to be on the sidelines. You know,
it's your
I
Nicola?
was buying it
It's your
at the
Nicola?
all-time high. What?
It's your Nicola?
It's
that
not
what it is?
No, it's not. But that's kind of where I see it. It's this thing that I would not want to be on the sidelines, but I don't know where it's going, which is why this whole conversation is fascinating to me, because you guys are way more knowledgeable, and you know that this is the kind of thing that it's great to learn about, and I don't know where it's going to go. I think Chris is more pessimistic about it. I would love to see it become a viable worldwide currency, but in the meantime, I see it as this scarce resource that we know how it's basically gold. We know that there's not going to be any more of it. We know how it works. We can predict some things about it, but it's not something that we have to. I'm not putting a lot of my portfolio in it, but I've consolidated down to just Bitcoin and Ethereum. And whatever Leon told me, like a 75-25 or 80-20 split.
I would love to see it work. I think it's an amazing thing. I would actually, I just don't think it will be that big that soon. But I would love to see it work, because honestly, as long as they can make it work like Apple Pay does, where I can just text it to you and not have to even think about it, and that would be great. That's my issue with it. How long is that going to take?
Well, that's the thing. It actually is probably more available than you think, because it is built into your Robinhood app. It is built into the Cash app. It's becoming a way more viable. I mean, I still don't think I can go buy anything with it, but I could send it to you.
Well, like I said, I also think it needs to be easier to access, and it needs to be, I need to feel that I can't easily lose it, right? I need to feel that me getting into a coma or something, like it's not gonna, and I forget my password, I'm not broke, right? Like temporarily broke or something like that. So there has to be some backup. There has to be some backup to it. And I want to make sure, Dave, that it doesn't just disappear one day. It doesn't like the government just say it's over one day, like the same way like TikTok is over on September 15th. On September 15th, it's done. Like, I don't want someone to be able to say that about my money.
Dave, do you have yours available in Cash App?
I do not. Mine is sitting in Coinbase, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to ask here. Is that okay, or should I have a physical? Should I have a scrap of paper that has my code written down on it? I mean, I got locked out when I had stuff in Binance, and I had stuff in Kraken, and I was experimenting early in crypto because I wanted to understand it, and so I feel like I understand it. I just don't know where it's going.
Oh, that was a nightmare back then. I hated all those plays. I did the same thing as you, Dave. I had all.
And remember, like what happened was I upgraded my phone, and all of my keys that were in Google Authenticator no longer were there. And to get my stuff back out of that weird Chinese company, I had to keep sending them pictures of me holding like the date and 2FA on a scrap. It was the weirdest, most difficult thing to get money sent back into Coinbase. So now I just have it all in Coinbase. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's where, to me, that's the easiest to use, and I know how to get into it, and I can check it like a stock quote, but I don't know if should I be in Coinbase? Should it be in Robinhood? Should it be in some other like offline wallet?
Yeah. So all great questions there, and I want to address three of them. And I think this might be a good segue into Dan's talk about the blockchain technology. So with the ease of use and wallets and everything like that, so I've used 100 different exchanges, like literally. And back in the early days, yeah, I kept my own crypto, so an exchange wouldn't close down. At this point, Coinbase is like the Bank of America crypto. They have a vault service, they have insurance, they use hardware wallets in their vault service. So that security is I would trust my Bitcoins there. In fact, 100% of my Bitcoins are in BlockFi right now, and that's a company that has insurance through Gemini, and so I'm earning interest there. So it's a lot easier to save and store your Bitcoin now. And yes, and then the question of the ease of use, that is coming. That's just maybe a year or 2 years away, but that's coming, and we're not even seeing the implications and innovations that are going to be coming. And then on the U.S. government banning crypto, they could have done it in the early days. In my opinion, that is unlikely, and getting more unlikely every day. So what the U.S. government is worried about is the Chinese currency. So right now we're the top currency in the world, and every currency has a 100-year cycle. We're kind of at the end of that. And also what I've seen with the legislators and it seems a lot more people in government are pro Bitcoin and a lot more money. So the crypto lobby is just getting bigger and bigger. So again, early days, it could, something like that could have happened, could have hurt Bitcoin more, but not so much today. But so I could take another quick follow-up to that, or we can transition to Dan's talk.
Well, Leon, I did just have one other question on the ease of use. If I were to send Bitcoin to someone today, how much does that cost me? Is it more than like a 2.9%, kind of like a credit card merchant fee, or is it like I don't know what 0.001 Bitcoin actually costs? Is it how much is that costing me?
Yep. Yeah, no, I'll have to look that up. 0.001. So let's see here.
Or whatever the fee is. I know that when I move it from one place to another, they siphon a little off.
So the blockchain transaction fees, that's variable. So it all depends on network congestion at the time. So it can be up, it could be a few bucks, it could be a few pennies. Now you can set a transaction fee to be like 1 penny, but it might take a lot longer for that transaction fee to process. Now, so with Bitcoin though, there's this technology called the Lightning Network that's being worked on, and Jack Dorsey's Square Crypto is working on that. Basically, it's another network of nodes, and you'll be paying in Satoshis, which is less than a penny, and transactions will be instantaneous. But that is still like pre-alpha. It's being worked on, and also with Ethereum, there's several wallets like the Argent wallet, where if I send from my MetaMask to Binance or something like that, they actually pay for the transaction fee, or the transaction fee is taken care of. So I'm not even paying a transaction fee there. And actually, in the Argent wallet, it's pretty cool. Like I can access DeFi assets and other things like that. So I would say it's still super early and a lot of room for improvement.
Oops. Hey guys, sorry, this is Matt from the OP. We just had a question from the chat about not your keys and not your coins, and Chill wanted to address that.
Go ahead, Chill. And then I think after that, we'll get to Dan's talk.
Yeah. So unlike the regular bank accounts that's linked to your identity, if you lose your debit card, you can walk into a bank and you can present proof who you are and get a new one. With cryptocurrencies, you have 2 keys. One is a public key, which is basically kind of like your email address, where the money goes so the receivers can see their address, and if you have to receive, you can give that to people. And the second is kind of much like your password in an email. Whoever has access to that secret piece of information can spend those funds, which is why if you don't have that secret piece of information, for example, Coinbase keeps those private keys. And because of that, it's technically you just paid for Bitcoin, but it's not your coin because you don't have the private keys to it. To send it, yeah. A lot of the questions you have regarding the regulatory environment, I will address it later in my presentation. I just wanted to give it back to Dan so we can obviously keep it at the schedule.
And with that, go ahead, Dan.
Cool. Yeah. I think one last comment for you, Dave, is that owning those private keys and really not having a custodian like Coinbase is something that I hope that everybody would like to do, but I realize not everybody will do because there is that risk is that if you lose this piece of information, right, or someone steals it, they can steal your currency, right? So, but if you're interested in that particularly, we're going to have a breakout session afterwards here back on the Vertly platform. And I believe Matt is going to be leading up discussions about how to do that. And it's getting a lot easier than you think. So in particular, Edge Wallet, which I think we can put out some resources for you guys to check out, is probably the cleanest interface, I think, for someone to try out with a small amount of currency that you own entirely. Has a lot of cool features. It's really easy to use. But beyond that, as you're starting to get into like percentages of your net worth, you don't want to be on your phone app, right? So we can talk all about that later. And more of the proper techniques to do this stuff. But yeah, why don't I jump into the technology side? Because cryptocurrency is cool. But I think that in particular, if we're going to be savvy investors, right, like with the Dumb Money crew, I'm sure definitely is, you got to do your research really and understand the fundamentals that drive why your asset that you're purchasing has any value and give you a sense of like, will it be valuable in the future? So, and then hopefully you're all seeing what I'm seeing. Let me turn my video back on. Hey, Dave.
I'm seeing myself again.
There you go.
Finally
All right.
working.
You see my slides now?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, so cryptocurrencies are great. Bitcoin's cool. And the thing that really drives all of this is blockchain technology. Right. So you guys might have heard of this before in passing. And this is the kind of new exciting technology play that really makes all this work. So if you guys are interested in these slides, and as well, we've mentioned a whole bunch of resources. These are the resources. So if you guys are on YouTube, if you're watching, you can scan this with your phone. And otherwise, I think we'll drop some links in the chat directly to these resources. You can check out. We've got all kinds of goodies for you. So what is blockchain? Right. This is in very technical terms and very, what is it? Computer science speak is a linked list database where each set of data, which we call a block, is directly referenced to the last one here. So hence it's a blockchain. You got a chain of data that links all the way to the back in its history. So the thing that makes it unique compared to other data structures is that you cannot change any piece of this without changing all of the following blocks. So if I go back in history here and try and change something, I got to change everything, right? But so this is just a simple data structure, right? Like, why is everyone so excited about this technology, right? Well, it's more than just that, this database structure. It's a protocol that validates that no data has been changed or corrupted across many people who are holding this database on a network of peer nodes, right? And these nodes, right, which are just computers out there in the wild somewhere, must come to consensus over this data, meaning everyone who's on this network, everybody who runs a Bitcoin node or one of these cryptocurrency nodes must agree on the exact state of that blockchain at any given time, right? And then on top of all this, and this is the most exciting feature, is we add game theoretic incentives that ensure fair behavior and that all of the rules that we enforce this protocol and this validation that goes on are going on as we expect it to. So there's some caveats to this, but I'll encourage you afterwards, join us in the mining and staking room. Tom's going to be talking about these game theoretic incentives. So more than just like this technology is cool, this is how it works and why it works, why we can trust that all these guarantees the blockchain assures that are there really work. So what do we have then? With all this put together is a distributed ledger. So it's across the world and across the globe. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll go populate Mars, right, with Elon's work. And it can be everywhere, right? And it's immutable, meaning that it cannot be changed by anyone anywhere, right? Once it's been put forth. There's no single point of failure because there's many different nodes who are running this. And it's not controlled or operated by anyone in particular. Here, there is no admin, there is no authority. It's absolutely transparent, which is pretty revolutionary here. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but anyone can read from this big network database, right? And it's completely open and access to everybody. So for instance, on Bitcoin, anybody can see all of the transactions that anyone's ever done on the Bitcoin network, which is a pro and a con for a lot of reasons. And here it's also permissionless, meaning that you can write to this network and no one can stop you, right? So you can't be censored, which is a pretty interesting aspect here with some caveats. Right? So here's the real kicker for everyone to try and digest is that once you confirm something on this ledger and make sure that it's actually on there, it's absolutely final. This is an open database that we can trust without trusting anybody who's using it. This is the novel thing. So in like cybersecurity, typically we're running into all these problems where we need firewalls and strict access controls to all of our systems. Here, this is a totally open system. Anybody can read it, anybody can write to it, and we don't trust that people aren't trying to mess with this thing because it's money, right? Bitcoin is, valuable. You'd want to be able to manipulate this if you could. But at least so far in track, we haven't seen that. So then really, what is cryptocurrency? We've talked a lot about blockchains here. Well, Bitcoin is an example of this. It's a blockchain that is storing financial transactions. Really, that's what cryptocurrency boils down to. So it's self-sovereign, which is meaning that you're the sole owner of this thing, right? At least you can be. It enables you to be with this, as Chill was talking about earlier, public and private key cryptography. And this is really the powerhouse that enables all of this to work. And this is used specifically to be able to access your funds as well as spend those funds, right? And it's absolutely peer-to-peer. So there's no third party or intermediary who is needed, right? Once you're onto crypto, once you have crypto, right, you don't need to go through a bank. You don't need to do anything but have an internet connection and be able to communicate with this network to make all these things happen. And this really makes it uncensorable. So this is one of the cool, unique properties, I think, of cryptocurrency in general, at least public blockchain technologies, is no one can stop you from doing this. As long as you can talk out to the internet, you can make it happen. So if you guys are curious, this is a fantastic resource for later. So in that resources link, you can come and see my slides, and there's a direct URL for this. It's a little bit technical, but totally worth a watch as to like really get into your head as to how Bitcoin operates very, very succinctly. So this 3 blue, 1 brown guy, he does a great job. So then why does all this matter, right? So we talked a lot about Bitcoin and blockchains in general is storing financial transactions, right? But really, it's just database. We can store anything. So financial transactions are one thing, but maybe we could store other stuff, right? Like identity or deeds and rights, permits, maybe things like news articles and blogs. But now we go a little bit further and think, well, what if we store code on this, right? This immutable ledger out there in the world, but also a way to uniformly read that code and interpret it. Well, this is where we enter smart contracts. And this, in my mind, is one of the really unique new things that blockchain enables beyond just currencies, right? These are pre-programmed terms and conditions that we can put onto a blockchain. This could then, because we're using a blockchain technology, include storage and transfer of assets programmatically, right? And so programmable money is a term you'll hear thrown around, and it really kind of encapsulates what people are able to do with this stuff. And this operates on a decentralized network that runs and validates these programs. And because it's a blockchain, again, it's immutable and 100% transparent. So they call them smart contracts because literally you can think of it as structuring as a financial contract that you put out there publicly for anybody to view and use, and no one can change it once it's out there. So it's absolutely final once it's issued. So another term you'll hear thrown around is unstoppable code. So it kind of relates to these smart contracts in general. Pretty exciting stuff. Then tokens, right? We've all probably heard of these if you guys are in the crypto space at all. So what really are these things? It's a cryptocurrency that is specific to a particular decentralized application or dApps smart contract. So you can think of about a really, these are built on top of some other blockchain. And it's been mentioned a few times before, but the Ethereum blockchain is almost where all of these tokens are living, or at least the ones that you hear about, and I'll talk about a little bit later. And so these tokens operate in a contract. They're part of the construct of it. So we'll really having one of these tokens gives you access then to potentially use a service that this contract enables, or grant you access to something that might be like features and things that are there, and a whole lot more stuff. They can be exchanged, and typically when we're talking about exchanging currencies and going to like a crypto exchange, these might have some value. And that's typically what people get really excited about. In particular, there's two classes that I kind of want to key people in on, is that fungible and non-fungible. So the analogy here is that fungible tokens are very much like a dollar or a casino token, right? If I give you $1 and you pass me back a different dollar out of your pocket, we're even, right? It's fine. But if I passed you a cat and you passed me back a different cat, we probably aren't even, right? So here it's saying how much one-to-one are these exactly the same, right? Unique and exchangeable. So tokens can really come in these two different classes. And I think that Leon might get a little bit more into that later on. But these fungible ones people talk about a lot, and Leon again mentioned it, is ICOs, initial coin offerings. This is probably why almost everyone has heard about crypto in general, is people getting into this market. So here I think you can see we've got a snapshot that's happening from roughly the 2015 timeframe to the 2019 timeframe, and literally hundreds of millions to billions of dollars have gotten pumped into all these different tokens. And so everybody everywhere was selling, especially in the 2017 timeframe, a whole bunch of these tokens, these crypto assets, and making a whole bunch of money from all of this. And what makes ICOs unique, I think, and Leon mentioned this previously, is unlike IPOs, this is free-for-all, right? If you can get your hands into crypto, which primarily is done through these central exchanges like Coinbase, right, then you can participate in all of these different markets, which otherwise wouldn't have been accessible to you before. So this is why people got so hyped up about this stuff, is it's a new way to play with money, right? And as investors and traders, a lot of people are excited about this. But there's a whole lot, and I think Chill will talk about this, ramifications in the legal and regulatory side, and a lot of scams were going on. And so this is a boom and a bust. A lot of good things came out of it, a lot of shitty things came out of it. So we'll come back to the ICOs and what's going on there. But I want to go back more towards the smart contracts and what we're doing with smart contracts and tokens. So I mentioned it before, a dApp, right, as a decentralized application. So meaning that you go to a typical web app, right, like we're using right now, YouTube, Vertly, whatever it might be. And here, that's on a central infrastructure. So somebody's computer somewhere, one place, is really operating all this stuff. In decentralized applications, really we have multiple different parties who can be operating parts of this application or all of the application independently of each other. And decentralized application in this context means specifically they're integrating with a blockchain network to run some of their code that's fundamental to their business logic. So here, a decentralized application uses, for instance, settlements on a blockchain network for cryptocurrency trading, right? And generally offers user-facing applications, is what we're talking about, which might still be centrally located, but that business logic that's core to making it work exists on a blockchain network. So it uses these contracts and currencies. And it also can really be, in some of the stuff I'm most excited about, fully decentralized on cloud infrastructure that really doesn't reside in one particular place. So you can think of this as true cloud applications. It's not just Amazon stuff that's going or Microsoft stuff that's doing it. It's spread out across many different peers. And there's many, many examples once you, after this talk, can check out as state of the dApps. So plenty of things are going on. And to give you a snapshot from late last year, there are thousands of these things that are primarily on the Ethereum network, as we're seeing. But people are really experimenting with what you can do with these smart contracting systems in a big way. And really, I think, and this is a pretty strong speculation, and again, I'm not a financial advisor, but DeFi or decentralized finance is where most of these dApps are going. And that's what we're seeing is a massive boom in this particular area. So, and check out for a link in these slides for a little bit more information about what these are. But DeFi, really, you can equate to permissionless finance. So all the things we're excited about in investing and trading, all these sophisticated financial tools that right now we have to be very savvy and have access to a lot of capital and access to these tools, right? DeFi really starts to bring down the barrier to entry for people to play with things like lending, which I know we mentioned earlier here. You can get loans here instantly and permissionlessly from out on the network if you can access these crypto networks, which is pretty amazing. And decentralized exchanges. So as opposed to places like Coinbase and Kraken, where they really are still one central player and acting as a custodian for your funds. So once you're in their system, you're locked into it until you get yourself out. Decentralized exchanges operate on these smart contracts where there is no custodian and are very ephemeral. You own your assets all the way through, and all you're doing is pumping money in and out of these programmable money mechanisms, these smart contracts. So it gets pretty exciting there. And then you can access things like derivatives. So options, I think that was one thing in particular that Leon will be doing a little bit more discussion of in his breakout groups. And as I mentioned earlier, stablecoins, I think is one of the most exciting things that are happening, where we're able to see settlement for payments, specifically like I do invoicing in stablecoins, right? Because I can avoid the volatility. And in third worlds, this is people are able to access the US dollar, which is what everybody seems to want to have access to hold their money and to do transactions in and with. And so much more. So check out after the presentation here and after the discussions, some more of those links. But so I really want to warn you again, I'm not your financial advisor, but man, there's a lot of shit here too. This is all super exciting, but scams are everywhere and things are way overhyped in general. And volatility, like we mentioned, is crazy. So, and as Chill will talk about, the laws and regs are really just, they're bad right now, but they're getting better. So I'd say after this, go ahead and join Chill if you're interested in where the infrastructure that's going to help enable a lot of this stuff actually work is probably the laws and regs getting better. So if you're interested in more of this particular topic, though, like what can we do with smart contracts in general, this is really what I want to get into, is the blockchain applications. Now we have this awesome technology. What can we do with it? Where can we go with it? So join me and we'll talk more about that. The last thing I want to leave you with here is that blockchain technologies are so young. It's been just over a decade since Bitcoin came online, and that's the first instance of this stuff, right? But I think that with time, these novel technologies have immense promise for so many different industries. It's not just finance, but at least right now, and I think the first big use case is definitely finance, right? And as we were talking about earlier, I do a lot of stuff with education and outreach, and specifically through the Colorado community here, but really anybody is welcome to join the Cryptorado community. So if you're interested in the technology side and maybe as a developer really want to start playing with these technologies, come and hang out with us. We do some really cool stuff. We do a lot of experimentations, and we're all about empowering these technologies to do cool stuff. So check us out there. and the Open Economy Initiative, which I am super excited about putting forth and promoting the adoption of crypto, right? So cryptocurrencies as the key technology here, and really with the end goal being that we can operate this in terms of a crypto economy, right? Is open commerce, that we don't need to have central governments controlling all that we do and printing out our savings away from us. So check us out there. And if you're interested in cryptocurrency specifically and want to get started in this space, join Matt's breakout room. This is really, I think, arming you with the right tools and techniques to do this the right way, so that we can avoid things like scandals of Mount Gox that you might have heard of before, and get you armed there. So that's it. That's all I got from me. I'm open to some questions if you guys have anything to go for right now. Otherwise, we can move right on into Chill's section. Either way.
Yeah, would love to hear from her. And by the way, that was great. And a blockchain is just so obviously needed in so many ways. I mean, I don't think anybody refutes the degree to which it's going to have a major impact on so many different business sectors and areas of just everything. I mean, it's going to be really cool over the next decade to see that come together.
Mm-hmm.
So I was following the chat that's going on in the YouTube room. Dan, can you tell us a little bit more about the smart contracts? Seem so permanent. What happens if there's a bug in them? How does that get unwound if something way up in the ledger happened and you need to fix it?
Right. So this is definitely one of the cons, I would say, is that it is immutable. So if you have a contract that has a bug in it, it gets stuck forever, right? If you're using that same contract, that bug's always going to be there. And there's been a few different cases of this actually happening where these bugs in the code have lost people a lot of money. The DAO hack that is something you guys can check out, that lost a huge amount of all Ethereum that existed because of a smart contract bug. So that definitely is a problem. Some of the ways to mitigate this, there's references that you can put into smart contracts as opposed to actually writing all of the logic that you want in the code itself. You can say, hey, actually, I want to be able to change this particular pointer and say, we want to use this particular contract code that can be swapped out. There's pros in that we can upgrade these contracts and we can get rid of whatever bugs might be linked to that underlying code. But there's also the risk that this immutability, right, that we trust this contract is going to do what we say it can do, can be changed, right? And who has the ability to change that then becomes really a hot topic. So who gives the rights and the governance around upgrading the contract becomes convoluted. So,
centralization.
Yeah. So you'll hear this thrown around too, is that DeFi is actually CeFi sort of kind of centralized finance, right? Is what the more that you rely on governance of these protocols to be able to pull back and make these things work based on what people have like bugs and problems or whatever, the less that this decentralized finance gets interesting in my mind. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think when we just talk about decentralization being kind of the fundamental driver around a lot of crypto, right, and blockchain, I find that super interesting. I think that at the end of the day, we'll always ultimately come back to it not being all about centralization or decentralization, but some happy medium, because like anything else, there's a reason for both, right? There's each have advantages and disadvantages, both have trade-offs, and there's some happy medium in between that's probably better than where we are today. But going full decentralized is likely too extreme, right, for anything.
Yeah, I totally agree. Some really interesting innovations, I think, to watch is the MakerDAO guys. So talking about DAOs, DAOs in general, more than the DAO hack, Maker is really put in charge. It's a governance mechanism that is somewhat centralized. They're in charge of keeping the peg of the DAI currency, so DAI as a currency, pegged to the dollar. So this is really interesting in terms of a mechanism that's totally novel. They have a stable currency that's pegged to this dollar with no collateral, right? It's just this governance mechanism that Maker is in charge of setting interest rates to keep a particular peg on this currency. So it gets complicated quickly. But here we have some centralization, and that helps empower this really interesting tool that's mostly decentralized. But yeah, there's going to be a huge hybrid. Depending on what you need, it's not black and white for sure.
Hey guys, Matt again. I'm just doing a time check. I think we got about 30 minutes left, and somebody's got a hard stop here at the top of the hour.
Yeah,
So
let's move.
just wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it all revolves around what theory of money you really subscribe to, right? Because there's the quantity theory of money, which I think Bitcoin kind of attacks after, but then there's also the credit theory of money, which is a little bit different in such that any money that you have is really just a piece of credit that's lent to you indirectly from the federal government or from whatever government you happen to, belong to, and that's ultimately an obligation to the government. It's not really your money, right? And so people have a hard time reconciling which theory of money they subscribe to, and it sounds like these different coins kind of they're going through that progression as well.
So for any dumb moneyers out there that want to know what Jordan is doing, like in the late night hours every night, when I'm surfing through Twitter, he is reading about monetary theory. That is Jordan's go-to. Jordan probably puts in 20 random hours a week studying monetary theory.
It's like his new hobby. It is
his new hobby.
It's great. I love it.
I just think it's fascinating. What I think is really fascinating is all the people that have spent a ton of time thinking about this and figuring it out. And, not just like, I think today you see it play out a lot in crypto, and you see it play out in a lot of different ways. You saw it play out more academically in universities, like around the turn of the century. You just see people struggling with kind of the same concepts. Different, right? Because one's a little bit more technology based, but money maybe was more, in its time, technologically advanced. In the 1900s, but early 1900s. But it's interesting.
Yeah, monetary theory is awesome. I think I geek out on that all the time too. And one thing, like you say, crypto, I think, isn't one thing or the other. It can very much be a blend or both, really. So again, talking about those maker guys, they're much more subscribed to the idea of credit-based money and systems. This is entirely how the system operates. So Bitcoin is, we only got this fixed supply and that's it. And the maker guys are thinking a lot more about you have collaterally backed loans basically that drive this whole system. So what does that debt instrument do to help you provide some money as a tool? So it's a cool place to be. It's a cool place to be. But hey, I think we should probably, jump over to Chill to respect you guys' time and talk a little bit more about the legal and regulatory space that I think we can see. It's exciting and to see how much, I guess, the governments of the world are taking this seriously as a movement. And Chill, I think you're muted.
Okay, let me just start share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And I actually do have something for Jordan to nerd out on later. Okay, so you guys probably heard they kind of drilled in people's head this narrative that Bitcoin is for criminals. And this is actually factually incorrect. Because Bitcoin is actually completely transparent. You can go back all the way to 2009 and look at every single transaction. In the current financial system, actually, you have to trust the banks to self-police. You have to trust ACH doesn't know the origins of the funds you just transferred. So regulators actually love Bitcoin because they can blacklist certain addresses, and IRS can see all the Bitcoin you bought ever and come after your capital gains tax. And the elegancy of Bitcoin is basically that you know exactly how many Bitcoins were mined today. I know exactly that there are 900 Bitcoins mined today. Now, do we know how much gold has been mined today, or how many dollars have been printed? We don't know. The inflation, we know exactly that there's 1.8% inflation. How do we know that? Well, it's in the code. So would you say, as an investor, as you guys, would you say that the ability for us to be able to predict exactly the supply of the currency and also use current data to kind of predict the demand for it is valuable, would you say? So to move on, I would add that Bitcoin is for criminals who actually want to be caught, because it's on blockchain forever. So if you want to get caught, Bitcoin is the way to do it. So the good news, the exciting news I wanted to tell you guys is, in the US, just recently, the OCC allowed all the banks now to become crypto custodials. So remember the private and public keys that I mentioned earlier? So these banks will now be able to become basically crypto custodials, manage these private keys on your behalf. So there is a hybrid model. There is a hybrid banking system that basically allows you to switch between fiat and crypto and have the best of both worlds right now. And Visa and JP Morgan and even Cash App supports Bitcoin. So it's not actually as difficult as it used to be. So let's look at the #1 state. So it doesn't get much wilder and western than Wyoming. So Wyoming is leading with this. They have a number, I think 13 different blockchain regulations at the moment. The #1 and the most important is the SPDI. Now, you may ask, well, what is an SPDI, Chill? Well, SPDI is a special purpose depository institute. So what's that? Basically, it's a bank that's 100% reserve. So if you deposit 100 Bitcoin, they're gonna have 100 Bitcoin. There's no fractional reserve business. They also don't do any lending. So they now have, Wyoming is the first state that has, the regulatory framework for this. And I would like to give out a shout out to Avanti, which is the first hybrid bank in the United States that is going to launch either in October or beginning of next year. So this is absolutely happening. They have a money transmitter exemption for Bitcoin. They have a utility token exemption from securities laws. They have a fintech sandbox, and they recognize Bitcoin as a direct property. And my favorite part about Wyoming is that there's no income tax, no corporate tax, no franchise tax, and no crypto tax. So go Wyoming. Now, right after Wyoming, there's Colorado. And we basically have been pretty much copy-pasting most of the valuable legislation. Colorado Digital Token Act has been passed in 2019. And this facilitates all the sale and the transfer of digital tokens. This also gives us an exemption from securities laws. And we also have a hybrid bank, which is the second hybrid bank, Liberado. So shout out to Liberado. That is going to launch sometimes next year as well. Also being able to host both fiat and crypto. Now let's look at the global race, because last year's Davos may as well being called How Worried Should We Be? And next year's, if you look it up, it's called the Great Financial Reset. So in Switzerland, we have SIBA. Now, SIBA is more than just the world's first crypto bank. What SIBA does, as you can see over there, is a number of services. They do digital custody services, trading, transaction banking. So it's all in one. Like right now, on your phone, on your app, you just have banking. Well, imagine an app where you can basically buy crypto, flip it to fiat, be able to invest in these different crypto coins, tokenize assets. We had the Overstock CEO, Patrick Bryan, I think, on the WIO Hackathon 2 years ago, and he said that 100% of Wall Street stocks will be tokenized. And that is also happening. They started to tokenize real estate. They basically, I mean, you can tokenize any commodity, any financial product. And this is not only just convenient, this is a paradigm shift. So coming back to that behavior question that you had, this is absolutely gonna open up the awareness of these regular people. Now they have this app, now they see Bitcoin. What's Bitcoin? Now they see that they can, purchase these different assets. So it's shifting the paradigm, and it's creating a lot more market participation, a lot more skin in the game. So it's super exciting. China, well, it's not in my presentation because it's brand new stuff that just came out. They're working on Asian drawing right, basically. So they bundled up commodities, they bundled up gold, they bundled up different currencies, and they created a non-tradable reserve asset. And so the plan is to basically wean people off the US dollar. Why do that? Well, obviously, because the global financial system is drowning in US denominated debt, now the inflation in real terms and in relative terms for these other countries is going to kick in. And China and Russia, Putin has been actually mining Bitcoin and stacking sets for a number of years now and buying gold. And we seen how last year both gold and Bitcoin were rallying like twinsies. So China is now testing this digital currency in 4 major cities. So this is absolutely happening. It's not just, I mean, a lot of this adoption, we're gonna probably see in like maybe 5 years from now, because they are just testing it. The Central Bank of France has their own so-called CBDC. Now you may ask, well, Chill, what is a CBDC? Well, CBDC is a central bank issued cryptocurrency. Now this is very important because a lot of people think that we have a digital dollar, so why do we need CBDC? Well, actually, we don't have a digital dollar. We have a claim on the intermediary, and anyone who knows how the banks work, they basically have, like, let's say, Citibank and HSBC each have a bucket for the other. So Citibank has an HSBC bucket that's an account where if you transfer money, they just take it out, put it back. And it's a very rugged system. They have these claims on the intermediary, but they don't have the ability to send money directly peer-to-peer. Also, Visa is a second layer solution. When you swipe your card, that does not instantly get settled, whereas Bitcoin settles in 10 minutes, and that's a final settlement. So this is why cryptocurrencies matter so much. Now, programmable money, I want to circle back to that, because programmable money is incredibly dangerous. So let's say you have a DUI in the US, and the government decides that it's probably not in your best interest to drink now, and they decide that you should not buy alcohol. They can now censor your money, and you can go to the liquor store and not be able to use your own money. And it's probably not going to be very easy to create self-custody either, because it's created by them. They can program any kind of program into your currency. And this is all to keep basically the control over the monetary policy. So we have been seeing, this is just the past couple months, we have been seeing a sudden shift. All of a sudden, all the people who were saying, no, we cannot do this, Facebook, JP Morgan, Visa, PayPal, all of a sudden they want to drive Bitcoin adoption. So they are now all working on, how to integrate this, how to not get left behind. And for Jordan specifically, there is a Deutsche Bank research that I can send to you. And this is coming from Deutsche Bank, okay? There's a research that has been done, and it starts with the end of fiat. And they discuss, this is a projection for 2030 of what they're seeing and what's going to happen. It's very, very interesting, kind of a trend forecast. There's other stuff as well, but it's interesting to see that they are now projecting that this shift is gonna happen rather fast, and it has a lot to do actually with deglobalization and localization as the crisis hit. So with that, I would like to wrap this up. Obviously, I'm part of the Open Economy Initiative. We have been promoting crypto commerce. This is our passion. We do have a course to show you. We had a lot of hacks last bull run. So we decided that, that shouldn't happen. Whenever someone onboards, we want them to know, how to store their cryptocurrency without getting hacked. And we put together about an hour and a half course. And it's right now at $12.99 on Udemy. I think it's gonna probably end in an hour. And then, basically we do a lot of events, and I work closely with, the regulators here to kind of participate in the new regulatory environment. But there's a lot of exciting stuff, and there's two crypto banks in the US that are hybrid banks that will, in my opinion, will be the biggest drivers of mass adoption. So thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, great chat, Jill.
That was very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, so on the end of fiat, fiat's not like a new invention, right? It comes in waves, and this wouldn't be the first time that, if the United States were to end fiat, it wouldn't be the first time that happened. So we've pegged to gold before, and we've had a combo pegged to gold and silver before. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a change again in how we structure our currency.
Cool. One thing I know, Chill, you mentioned it. I think your second to last slide. This is relatively new in the past couple of weeks, talking about adoption and ease of use. I think MasterCard, one of their prime issuers now, is a cryptocurrency direct payments credit card. So effectively, you load up your account with crypto, and it'll charge to your card, and it'll dividend you immediately. So and I forget the exact designation, but this is happening all over the place. That crypto is becoming the underlying payments rails for whatever we're doing on the surface level. And I think that's going to happen faster than we realize, as we're seeing.
Yep. A book I definitely want to recommend. It's a book called The Bitcoin Standard by, I forget his first name, but Saifedean Ammous. But it's a really good book. It goes into the history of money and how the gold coin worked in Rome, and when they devalued it, how it brought the end of Rome. And these cycles of fiat currencies and hard money and Austrian economics versus Keynesian economics. But his main thesis in there is Bitcoin could eventually become sort of a Bitcoin standard in the future. But definitely a great book to check out.
Yeah, Leon, I think, what you always hear us talk about, our whole methodology when it comes to social arb investing is all about having a prepared mind. And with that, to have a prepared mind, you have to be able to work out all the various scenarios that can come into play that would lead to opportunities. And this is really no different. Like, we talk about scenario modeling at the ticker level. We do scenario modeling at the sector level, and we do scenario modeling at the macro level too. And, this is scenario modeling, quite honestly, at like the monetary level, and understanding, how this will unfold over the next 5 to 50 years. It might seem like a long time, but you never really know when things are going to accelerate. And I think it is really smart as an investor, regardless of which way you think this is going to go, because no one really knows. It's impossible to tell. There's just too many variables that are going to impact, how this roadmap unfolds over the coming years and decades. I think it's really important to map out those possible scenarios, pick the scenarios that you think are most likely, but understand what all the potential scenarios look like. So as you see them unfolding, you know exactly what you plan to do. Already have your plans ahead of time. Like, hey, I don't think crypto is going to do this decade, but if I start to see this happen, right, I know that this is what I want to do. I know this is how to do it. I already know this is where I go to buy it. I already read the book on crypto, so I understand what they're talking about. Maybe attending, whatever is right for you, whether it's attending a conference like this once a year or once a quarter, or if you're more interested, once a week, but at least having the knowledge, because if you don't, you're just totally in the dark, and that's just not a good place to be. And like, Leon, as much as I've kind of shrugged off the big crypto movement over the past 5-6 years, when you said we were doing this, I'm like, I hadn't thought about this in a few years. And I'm really glad that you brought it up now, because it's just kind of lifting it, to the top of mind again, and just reminding me that every once in a while I need to just at least be thinking about this, because it's not going anywhere. It's not going away, right? We can debate the degree to which crypto will be adopted by the world and what that actually looks like with blockchain. And is it Bitcoin? Is it something else? Is it a government? Is it a hybrid currency? We have no idea, but this is not going away. I don't think this is only going to likely, go sideways for a while and then have jumps in popularity. Maybe there will be times when it will pull back and correct and then kind of figure itself out and figure out how it wants to move forward. But I think this is really smart for everyone that's attending tonight. And, if you have time, I unfortunately don't, but if you have time to do a breakout session with you guys in any of these areas you're interested in, I think it's really cool. I just want to thank all three of you for doing this for the Dumb Money, audience, and it makes us smarter.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the words. And I guess that is a good transition to get into Vertly and join the rest of the community there. So, Dan, how would you lead us? Do we just go into Vertly and leave here?
So, yeah, everybody who's on YouTube presently, there should be a link dropped here momentarily to join us on the Vertly. And here we can do some breakout rooms. When you get to Vertly, you'll see on the left-hand side some different tabs. And in particular, you're going to find the Rooms tab. And in there, we'll each jump into our respective slots, and we can have live discussions with y'all. So I'm super stoked for that. And I'm really hoping that everybody can join who can from this call. And thanks for this. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay. I'll see you in Vertly.
Yeah, see you guys there.